What's up YouTube? Friendly neighborhood coach Jose here. It's been a minute. I do apologize about that. I've had so much going on recently with the tennis business here and family, personal things going on. My wife and I are expecting our first very soon, so that's very exciting. I might be a little bit on and off YouTube here, but I do plan on getting back on a regular routine to get video out to you guys, because I know you are expressing your love for them and telling me to keep going, and I really appreciate all the comments that you've been leaving me. In this video today, I'm going to share with you a couple of my top tips on how you can improve your kick serve, your second serve. Let's check it out. Now, before we go any further in depth, I'll give you a little bit of a description on the second serve. So the second serve, and I'm going to use this orange ball here so you can see the difference between the yellow and the orange, or whatever colors you want to call it. Now, the way this works is two main spins. You've got 6 to 12, where if you're looking at the ball here like a clock face, you want to go underneath 6, right up to 12 and make it spin over the top of itself just as so. Now what this is going to do is it's going to make the ball spin and go straight up towards your opponent or towards the direction of where you're hitting. So for example, when it hits the ground spinning in this over the top direction, once it hits the ground, it's going to pull into that direction. So spinning this way, bounce, pulling into that direction. I hope that makes sense. Then the second most commonly used kick serve is the kick to the right as a right-handed player. If you're a left-handed player, kick will go left. If it's going in the opposite direction, so as a right-handed player, instead of kicking to the right, if it's going to the left, that is no longer a kick serve, that is a slice. A very good weapon to have in your artillery, but not what we're working on today. Today we're working on the kick. So if you're looking at bouncing the ball and wanting it to change direction slightly to go to the right as a right-handed player, then you're going to want to look at the clock face again, but this time you're going to go from maybe a 7 or 8 o'clock, so it's roughly around this area here, and then you're going to come up around the 2 o'clock area, around the other side over here. I hope that's making sense as a clock face there. So that way when it spins, it's not just going straight over the top as so. Instead of spinning straight over, it's going to now spin on an angle, so going more in a diagonal sort of swing path. So what this is going to do, in that diagonal swing path, when it hits the ground, it's going to pull off into that sideways direction. I hope that breaks it down and makes sense for you. When you do this for both the kick top spin, so going over the top 6 to 12, or kick to the right diagonal spin, you want to make sure that you're getting incredibly good height and racket head speed for the spin. The reason for this is so that you're staying away from the net. You need good height so you can get away from the net. You don't want to be going into the net. That's the worst mistake you can do in tennis. At least give the ball a chance of going in by getting some height over the net and then seeing what happens with the spin. Now with the spin, this is where it gets really wristy. You need to increase your racket head speed with your wrist, which is what we're going to be working on here today. Let's check it out. I'm going to keep using this orange ball here so that you can see a little bit the spin, the action that I'm going to do. This first step is very basic and no skipping ahead here. Get this first basic step right before you move on to the next stage. So the first step here we're going to work on is getting the racket to lag down your back. So dropping down as far as you can down your back and then rolling your wrist to brush the ball upwards. Now there is no forward motion, it's just going to fizzle out in front of you here, just as so. It's not going to really have much power or oomph on it. All we're looking for here is to brush underneath the ball and upwards. So this is that 6 to 12 part of the motion. We're not worried too much about the kick to the right. We can work on that in a second. But first, let's work on just getting under and up and stopping right here with your racket. So just like when you would hit a forehand or backhand, you want to brush under and up and then just stop like that to work on the spin. So just like that, you can throw the ball up and just stop just there. And you can see that spin imparting into the ball already just by getting that brushing upwards motion and stopping just as so right here. You don't need to follow through any extra just yet. This first basic stage is about 1, and brushing up and stopping with your racket, just as so. You make sure that your strings are continuing to face towards your target or the opposite side of the court. If you're doing your motion and your strings are facing down, to the sides, anywhere other than flat towards your target, then you're not doing the correct motion with your wrist. Now I wanted to get this side-on angle so that you can also see how the serve differentiates between the first and the second serve. I hope that's the word I'm looking for, differentiate. Hope that. Anyway, for the first serve, we're about hitting and getting momentum through and forward into the court. Now, don't get me wrong, we are using momentum in the second serve, but we're not going forward nearly as much as a first serve you would. For the second serve, it's more about driving up the back of the ball and getting as much spin as you possibly can. If you have a look at any of the pros with their second serve, particularly the kick serve, you watch how their swing path goes. If you can watch from a side-on angle, as I've got you here, you can very easily see that their racket comes up the back of the ball. They're staying side on as well. I should mention that, because if they're facing front on, what's going to end up happening, and I see this quite a lot, and you might be making this mistake too, of slicing at the ball. So what happens is, as soon as you start turning and become more front on, as soon as you hit the ball, then you're hitting across on the side. So that is then becoming a slice. Whereas if you stay side on while you're making that contact, and then afterwards you're coming through. But again, take a look at my swing path here. It's staying rather behind the baseline or in line with the baseline, not really coming forward as you would see in a first serve, coming over the baseline. So make sure for the second serve, you're driving up, spinning around, you're extending your arm out slightly more to your side, and then at the very end, you're turning and facing in. As you improve with your second serve, you can come slightly more into the court and get a little bit more momentum, but however, this is going to impact how much spin you use. Now, another really quick tip I'll give you here is the ball toss. For this activity I'm showing you here today, it can just be just in front of you, above your head. When you get a little bit better with your second serve and building this motion and the muscle memory, that's when you can start throwing the ball slightly more behind you to impart more spin. Because if you've got the ball coming back behind you and the racket coming across, then you're going to be putting more spin on the ball essentially. I hope that makes sense for you. So just like when you hit a topspin forehand or a topspin backhand, the most amount of spin you'll ever be able to use with the same action will be when the ball is slightly dropping. So the ball's dropping, the racket's coming up, so you've got counter actions. I hope that makes sense. So that's the most spin you can use. Same with the second serve. One ball going this way, racket going this way, most spin you can use. The second part of this action is the pronation. So this is where you're now brushing up and then you're coming forward with your wrist, so pronating forward. So the easiest way I explain this is with your thumb. So you're starting with your thumb pointing backwards to the back fence, and then what you're doing is then facing your thumb towards the net. Now this is where you're making sure you're still getting that brush up first. So remember that first activity we did was just getting under and up the back of the ball, 6 to 12, but then that last part of the motion, thumb facing more towards the net. Now don't worry where the ball goes right now. Right now it's all about just brushing up and then pronating with your thumb more facing towards the net. So your strings should end up facing towards the side fence here. That way you impart so much more spin, and this way the ball will also go in the forwards direction. So if you can do this correctly and build on that and get that muscle memory and that feeling of brushing the ball, you're gonna impart a really good high and spinny second serve. So let's check that out really quick. So getting under and brushing forward. Under and brushing forward. Okay, 1, 2. This time from the back angle, getting under, brushing up, and then pronating forward. Under, brush up, pronate forward. And it's got to be one fluid motion. Now, if you're struggling with this, just go back to part 1 of just getting under and brushing up and stopping there. Now, once you've got that down pat and you feel comfortable with that and you can do that over and over, then it's just rolling that wrist and coming around. So now the tip of your racket facing towards the net. So just 1 and 2. Okay, as long as you can do that part of the motion, then you're safe. Then it's just building up racket head speed so you can increase the power and the spin. And like I said before, the power comes from the pronation. Yes, it comes from your leg drive and getting up and snapping through. All the energy comes from the legs up and through at the very end. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode. I really hope you got something out of it, and remember the second serve, staying as side on as you possibly can so you can brush up the back of the ball. If you're turning and facing front on too soon, you're going to be slicing at the ball, which is one of the most common things I see when people are learning the second serve for the first time. So make sure you stay side on and brush up the back of the ball before you then turn and face more front onto the court. Then the next big tip there is making sure that you are just brushing straight up the back of the ball. Don't worry about making any of these fancy big spins or the big kicks just yet. Focus on getting that brush up the back of the ball, then you can work on these fancy spins, on getting more of a kick on your second serve and more power on your second serve. So just master this first activity before you go on do anything too advanced. Remember, no skipping stages. If you want to get good at tennis, just like anything in life, here's the life lesson for you: is you've got to make sure you put in the time, the effort, the dedication to improving yourself and your skills. If you skip stages in life, you're probably going to feel like you've missed out and you're not fully equipped. Whereas the more you practice, the more time and effort you put in, the more you're going to be fully equipped to do whatever exercise or whatever life has got planned for you. So prepare, do as much of the back work as you can so you can develop your game into a professional, maybe. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Cheers. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of these videos too. I'll catch you next time.